Hello, hello, and welcome to Roots and Branches, The Branches on KFred Radio. I'm your host, Janet Monroe, a birth mother in the adoption constellation. Before we begin today's program, I would like to celebrate a very special milestone. On July 1st, 2025, we launched the very first episode of Roots and Branches Adoption Stories. What began as one birth mother's desire to share honest conversations about adoption has grown into a community of people who are willing to listen, to learn, and to understand. To every guest who has trusted me with your story, thank you. Your honesty, courage, and willingness to be vulnerable have made this podcast what it is today. And to every listener who has followed the journey, shared an episode, left a comment, or simply listened with an open heart, thank you. I am truly grateful for your support. You are helping these stories reach people who may have felt alone for far too long. I also want to extend a special thank you to my two mentors, Joe and Brian, who have encouraged me every step of the way. And thank you to those at KFred Radio, who openly have taken me under their wing. As I reflect on this first year, I realize something. Every adoption story has roots, but as we hear these stories, we see the branches growing. The roots are the lived experiences of birth parents, adoptees, adoptive parents, foster parents, families, and everyone whose life has been touched by adoption. The branches are the understanding that grows from these stories. So today we're beginning something a little different. From time to time, alongside the personal stories you've come to know, we'll invite psychologists, therapists, researchers, advocates, and others who can help us better understand the emotions, relationships, trauma, healing, and hope woven throughout adoption. I'd really love to hear your thoughts on this new format and where you think these conversations could go. This podcast has always been about learning together, and your feedback will help shape the future of Roots and Branches, the branches. Today's episode is a perfect place to begin. We're exploring a side of adoption we rarely hear about, the fathers. My first guest is Jim Pehkonen, a life architect who helps men positively rearrange their lives after experiencing trauma. But while he was helping others, Jim experienced a trauma of his own. When I first met him, he said something I'll never forget. I've been a dad for 4 years, but my son is 40 years old. Those few words tell a story of discovery, of hope, of loss, and of healing. Joining us is psychologist Gloria Vanderhorst, a woman whose life's work has focused on helping men understand and express the emotions our culture often teaches them to hide. Together, we're asking an important question. What happens to the fathers in adoption stories? And what can we learn when they finally tell us their truths? Jim, welcome to Roots and Branches. And Gloria, so happy that you could make it as well.
Thank you.
Jim, let's start at the beginning. How you discovered that you were the father of a son.
Yeah, so it was probably about 4 or 5 years ago. My younger sibling and I had given each other DNA tests. And in the DNA test, my sister, she said, hey, somebody I'm related to and chances are, I think you have a son. And I said, no way. I said, that's impossible. I said, nope, nope. And it's like, well, maybe you should contact me. I said, well, I said, here's the thing. I said, if this person is not my son, he's going to be the son of my brother. And my brother had passed 2 or 3 years before we discovered this. And as I am the black sheep, my brother is the one who could do no wrong. And I said, if we do the test and we find out it's him, the family is going to be upset at me for besmirching his memory. Well, long and short of it, I did the test. And on a Sunday morning, first thing in the morning, I got the results back that I did indeed have a son. I sent a message to him. 45 minutes later, he responded, and over the next 2 hours, we went back and forth, texting. Roughly 3 hours into it, I gave him my phone number. 45 minutes after giving him my phone number, the mother called and said, "You're not his father." And said, and I'm like, "I don't even know you." She told me where we met, where I worked, where our first date was, where our second date was. She described to me in detail, and she said, and then after the second date, we slept together once and you never called. And I was shocked. And then she said, and just so you understand, you will never have a relationship with him. And I actually think she said, your son. He and I, within the next few months, we actually chatted quite a bit. I met him once, but the mother has been very insistent that he not have a relationship with me. I ended up writing a book, and the book is right over there. I wish I would have grabbed it, and I'm going to run over it sometime and grab the book. But I ended up writing a book because I realized I had no clue how to develop a relationship with a biological son. I've been single. I don't have, it was my desire to have a relationship. I accept the fact that he does not want a relationship. And I will say the amazing thing about him, he looks like me. He has the same medical issues as me. He even kind of sounds like me. And the most amazing thing that I realized is, even though he was raised by two very blue-collar humans, by his mid-30s, he had a similar career path where he was already in management in a company. So I also found out that I have two granddaughters, one that's a biological one and one that's an adopted one. I guess it's interesting because the biggest thing I really wanted were to have not only a relationship with my son and his wife, but with those granddaughters. And that never happened, and it's probably not going to happen. But I went through the phases. First, I got to say I was incredibly angry for her not telling me, because if you would have known me, or if you know me now or then, that would have changed the trajectory of my life, because I would have assumed responsibility. I had a great job. I was making great money. I always have been. I've always been very successful. But I myself, I had some very severe childhood trauma that every few years, even though the positions I went through, I was really good, every few years, my unprocessed trauma and stuff had me have to geographically relocate to a different area. If I had it my way, I would most definitely, and also to wrap that, I'm sorry, I'm like, this is, it's bringing a lot of stuff up. But I process my trauma. I can talk about my trauma in front of groups. I've talked about it. I've led workshops for over 30,000 people. But the thing is I have a son. And it really feels like my experience of having a child was taken from me without my consent.
I think,
That's me.
Jim, you're right on target. It was taken from you without your consent.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very difficult loss to experience. An incredible surprise to be introduced to an adult child
Mm-hmm.
that you are related to and that you long to know,
Mm-hmm.
because we are connected through genetics.
Mm-hmm.
We want to know the people that we are related to. I mean, there's a whole industry out there of having the opportunity, right, to take a deep dive into your genetics and to learn about the people in your history. So, of course, you want to have a relationship with this son. It's normal, it's natural, and it will be healthy for both of you. The mother in this situation is a roadblock, a very serious roadblock that I hope both of you chip away at and build a relationship.
Yeah. It's funny, the last time she called was maybe a year ago, and she's like, "You've got to stop filling my son with those lies. You're not his father and you never will be." And it's interesting. I'm like, I am his biological father, but I had no influence on him along
Right.
the way.
There is a
But
difference between
we
being a
know
father
in the
and being a
history
parent.
of people that get adopted,
Mm-hmm.
right, that they do this serious search. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
they invest time, energy, money in finding their biological parents. We are driven to understand the people that we are connected to. So the mother is off target. The benefit is for the son to really experience that connection.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, he can decide if he wants to maintain that connection or not. But it's so important to take a deep dive into your own relationship and into your genetics. I mean, it's such a rich experience for another person to have.
One of the things that I find really important when I'm talking to people who have been adopted and are looking for their birth parents
Mm-hmm.
is that they have to understand they have to listen to the story behind their adoption, why they were adopted, what, why did the birth parents decide that? Um, and a lot of people have been told stories by their adoptive parents that aren't true.
Right.
You know, I had a lady last week who was told that it was her birth mother's grandmother who was the source behind her being adopted. She was, but it turned out it wasn't. The grandmother actually wanted the mom to keep the baby. It was the mother, who was only 15 at the time, who decided that adoption was the best way, because the way she was raised it was herself and a sibling and the grandmother, and they had nothing. They had to fight for everything. And she didn't want her child to be brought up that way. Where I was in the opposite spectrum, I had a loving mom and dad. You know, my dad worked. My mom was a stay-at-home mom, loving family. I did not want to marry the gentleman who was the father of my child, because I knew it would lead to divorce, and I would be in the same situation we would have been in if I became a single mom. So I wanted my child to have the same thing that I had. So every story is different.
Mm-hmm.
And you need to listen to the story, because there are lies that are told to make someone feel better or worse. And those have to be listened to with an open mind. So I have a Post-it note on my computer that says the most expensive thing you can own is a closed mind.
Wow.
That's great. That's
That's
great,
great.
Janet.
That's profound.
And everybody, when you're meeting someone for the first time, you have to be open-minded. You have to listen to the story. And the fact that you didn't know he was there contributes to him wanting to know more about you. Because he's just hearing negative parts. And yes, you are not his father. You are not his parent.
Right.
You are his
Yeah.
biological.
Right. And to me, the one time that we actually sat down and had a very long coffee, he told me that his mother, like, she's never really said anything. There's no name on the birth certificate. And also the mother had been taking care of the oldest child during the summer. But the last I talked, the oldest child was starting to see a therapist because she was beginning to have some of the negative attributes of my son's mother. And they were like, my girls cannot be around her. And I wish he would see that and give me a chance. But on the other hand, he told me all he really wanted was the medical. That's all I really want is the medical background from you. I don't, so, and I accept that, maybe with a little regret, but I do accept that. And the last time his mother called and lashed out at me, I left him a message and basically said, if you want a relationship, it's going to have to be up to you. And I have not heard from him since.
And that's tragic, Jim, because it blocks him from really learning about the other half of himself, right? We are born connected to two people, always. And it's so powerful to understand those connections and to dig into the history and to appreciate who we are and how we have inherited certain qualities and characteristics. So it is a disadvantage for this man to just want the medical history and really not want the social, the dynamic, the emotional history. Those are valuable, incredibly valuable.
Very, very true.
So, Jim, what were your feelings when you found out that you had a son?
It was like, initially it was exuberation. Like, I'm like, one of my boys made it home. It was,
Right.
it was,
Right.
and there's probably a little shame in the fact it was a one night stand. But it wasn't, but it was somebody that I had gotten to know well enough to know that there was no long-term possibility for the two of us. She has a very negative disposition on life. Now, what caused us to actually be intimate once? I don't remember. I do have pictures of her and the young him, and I don't remember anything because that was 40 years ago. But the emotion was stay away, stay very far away. So, and I know from my own healing, from my own abuse as a child, I'm going to make a general statement, and the good doctor may, my picker is broken around women. I have suffered an ongoing betrayal from a very young age, and I hope I don't sound like a victim, but that's just something I realize is that in a lot of my core early traumas, what I was left with was a sense of not picking the healthiest of partners.
Absolutely.
Does
Right.
that make sense?
Oh,
Um,
it makes a lot of sense. You know, early traumas, even birth traumas and
mhm,
traumas when you are an infant, have a long-term impact on how you feel about yourself, how you present yourself in the world. We think that we are really adaptive, that we can recover easily. But the truth of the matter is that early traumas are significantly powerful. Think of how dependent an infant is,
yeah,
right? You have no choice in the world. You have no real opportunity to control what
mhm,
happens around you. Here are the things you can do. You can cry,
mhm,
right? That's it.
yeah, yeah,
Right? That's your resource.
mhm,
You can cry. And the world responds to that in a broad range of
mhm,
ways.
right,
So you are incredibly dependent as an
mhm,
infant. And there are injuries that can be delivered to infants that will influence them for the rest of their lives until they can make that connection,
yes,
right? Until they
yeah,
come into a situation where they're caused to reflect and to
mhm,
appreciate, oh, that happened to me as an infant,
mhm,
and I have moved that forward through the rest of my life and behaved in this particular way
mhm,
because of that infant trauma. But now
yep,
that I know about it, I have a choice. But
mhm.
prior to that, I had no choice whatsoever.
And that is so on point because in the work that I do, I it's funny. I used to call myself a life architect. Now I'm just titleless because the work that I do is I work primarily with men who've experienced trauma and the traditional methods to process it have failed. I have a very unique healing modality that works.
Mhm.
But I have to tell you, doctor, I have been able to go back and understand the first trauma that occurred with me at 18 months. And
Yeah, good.
I've talked with my biological mother about
Hmm.
what happened that night. So
Hmm.
I've been able to, and the funny thing is that trauma and that betrayal, it's like there was a string that just went through all of my life
True.
experiences
That's true.
until I really realized it and healed it. But the other thing is, like my last marriage that failed, we were just like I don't even. Each of us had our own issues, and to put us together with her two children was really a recipe for disaster. And
Hmm.
now, like, I really have to reflect upon if I'm attracted to somebody, is it from a fix it mode or is it from a healthy, this is somebody you could actually experience a level of attraction and love and other things? Because I realized that those early traumas, especially if you've had, and I had a few severe traumas. I was sexually assaulted when I was 9. It was a 16-year-old girl. And when I was 11, 12, when my parents went to Europe, I was left with a pedophile.
Hmm.
Um, so those severely impacted my ability to form healthy relationships, which is why
Absolutely.
I had a lot of one night stands.
Hmm. It makes perfect sense, right? We can be traumatized from birth forward, and that makes an impression in your brain.
Mhm.
So it changes your perspective, it changes your behavior, it changes your reactions to
Mhm.
people. We are connected to the people that birthed us in ways that many times we really don't understand the importance or the significance of those early experiences. Well, people think, all right, you didn't walk, you didn't talk, so whatever happened to you as an infant, we could just discount. It's not really important in your history, but it is very important in your history, and it jumps into the present and influences how you react and respond to others until you can take that deeper dive and figure out, well, what really did happen to me? What are the traumas of infancy and early childhood? They are dramatic and they do jump into the present.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And one of the things I know in my work is the deeper you understand them, when they jump into your present, you don't have to have the same response,
Right.
the same and I'm going to say the same trauma response
That's
you
right.
had
That's
at a
right.
younger age. You can create actually a healthier response
Right.
that brings about a healthier behavior. And that's part of the reason why if I met somebody, like, I'm open to love. I really am.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
just that little the little shadow inside, because of all this instances and incidents, it's hesitant.
Right.
And could I develop? I wrote a whole book because one of the things I found, the book is about how to communicate if you found a brand new DNA relative, because I actually took notes of the things that I understood and the things that I didn't understand. And it's so beautiful because I'm in a situation where I didn't know what I didn't know,
Mm-hmm.
and that had me have to really look at how do I create it, because this is not a friend,
Right.
and it is a biological relative who I would like to, son is in there, but I was just the sperm donor.
Right.
I mean, any
But
thoughts?
there is still a connection. Right. It's
Yeah.
unbelievable how much we carry in our DNA. In fact,
Mhm.
there's evidence that we carry pieces of history from the past 3 generations in our own DNA.
Wow.
Yeah, it's true. I have an excellent example of that. I worked with a woman who tells the story in her childhood that she would have this repeat dream and she would wake up screaming. She was really afraid. And then her grandparents came to live with her parents from over the ocean, right? And she had this dream, and her grandmother responded to her in the middle of the night. And the little girl, she's like 8, right? And she starts telling pieces of this story that she can remember. And the grandmother kind of does this, right? The little girl is telling pieces of a story that this grandmother knows about her own parents. I mean, it's just wild, right? And it's transformational for the little girl, for the grandmother, for the parents to really appreciate that our bodies do carry this information from past generations. And sometimes it does leap into the present,
Mhm.
and you have to be able to process it and to respond to it.
Mhm. May I share a similar story that I've
Of
experienced?
course.
So when I was younger, there was an old picture of one of my distant relatives' homes in North Dakota. And I was talking to two of my relatives. I looked at the picture and I'm like, yeah, I've been in that house. And then
Mm-hmm.
I described the holiday feast that went out in that house, and I described what the table looks like, and I
Mm.
described, and they're like, this is impossible. This happened when I was a child. It is
Right.
impossible. But I'm like, but they're like, but your detail is so correct about
Right
the
on
food that was
target.
served. And it's like, and I can look at that picture, and I've walked in that house. I was there with and there were kids everywhere. And they're like, well, that's just impossible because it was so, you weren't even, your mother
You
was a,
weren't born. It's the power of genetics.
Mhm. It's very, very, very true. And at the time, that whole side of my family was deaf, and I'm like, everybody, nobody talked this way. Everybody, and I was younger, right? Now I'm like
Uh-huh.
everybody talked with their fingers, and they're just like you
So
couldn't.
powerful.
Yeah, all those relatives were deaf, so yeah, they would all
Oh,
get
that is so
together.
powerful.
Yeah, it's true.
Mhm. Life is interesting.
Yeah, yes.
We certainly have a lot to look at, don't we?
We
So,
do.
Gloria, how do the boys learn to hide painful emotions?
Mm.
Ask it again.
How do boys learn to hide those painful emotions that they have when they're growing up and if they have trauma?
We train boys from infancy
Mhm.
to cut off access to their feeling states. We don't do it intentionally, all right? Mothers are completely unaware of this fact that boys come into the world with a broader range of emotional expression than girls do.
Oh.
So when an infant boy goes up to a higher experience, more agitated, intense, on the positive end, kind of silly, gleeful, excited, or goes to the negative end, right? More sad, more depressed, more irritated, mother's response to that is normal and natural, right? She backs away, she scrunches up her face, she turns her head. And infants are brilliant. Their only survival mechanism is reading the world around them. So they read facial
Mhm.
expressions accurately, right on target. So immediately the boy learns, oops, don't go into that range, don't go too high,
Mhm.
don't go too low, keep yourself here because that will maintain mother's attention. And
Mhm.
then when we put them on their feet, when they start to walk, we do a double down to every male. We tell them directly, boys don't cry. I've seen it firsthand, right?
Mhm.
Visiting neighbors. They have a boy who's 2. We have a girl who's 2. They're playing nicely. The adults are chatting nicely. My daughter keeps his favorite toy. She will not give it back. And so he naturally tries and he gets up, he starts to cry, he starts to whine and go to his parents as a resource, right? He's hoping,
Mhm.
hey, my parents will help me get my favorite toy back. He's heading towards his dad, and his dad whacks him in the chest with the back of his hand, lands him on his butt, and tells him, don't cry, right? He's 3 or 2. He has a
Mhm.
right to cry. His favorite toy has just been taken away from him and he can't get it back. It's a normal, natural reaction. He should be crying, right? But culturally, we train boys to shut off access to sadness, to grief, to worry, right? Boys are not supposed to engage in those feeling states. It's horrible. I'm very passionate about that too.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, boys are culturally raised to stuff it all down, and then we wonder why
Absolutely.
we have the level of violence later when somebody puts the
Right.
toilet paper roll on wrong, and all of a
right,
sudden they're putting holes in the wall, they're going
right.
out, they're doing all these things. It's because we have never been demonstrated the safety of expressing
No, that's
emotions
right. It
and
has never
actually
been safe.
being our authentic self in the world.
Right.
It's part
That
of the
is
reason why,
absolutely right.
yeah, one of the things I do in my work is I have a complimentary men's group where men can come and they can experience brotherhood. And
Mm-hmm.
it's often so amazing when men first come in because they're just not sure. And within 20 minutes, it's like, I don't know why I feel so at home here.
Right. Right. Our jails are full of men because they have never learned to process emotions. And so they can't problem solve with another human being, right? They get physical, they get intense very quickly. They really cannot process feelings and talk to another person about the feelings that they're having. I tell people, go to a funeral, right? See what happens, right? Guys who've lost, men that were powerful, important to them, that they loved deeply, they are not crying.
Nope.
They wait till they get to the parking lot and climb into their cars and then they cry. That's stupid.
Well, I
That's
can,
ridiculous.
yeah, I last Saturday I went to a celebration of life. One of my best friend's sons graduated high school with honors, had an incredible future, and 2 weeks after he graduated, he committed suicide. And I sat at the table with his best friends, with his best friend and their posse, right?
Right, right.
And at one point you could see him welling up, starting, and he got up and he walked out.
Walked out.
And he
Yeah. No,
came
boys are
came in.
not supposed to cry.
Yep. And the same thing with the hockey team. Like
Yeah, that's
they,
criminal.
when you saw them, they were like breaking, but then all of a sudden they just like put it
Yep.
away,
Anyway, yep.
and
That's what we have socialized. We've trained our boys not to go into the tender feelings, yet we expect them to get
yeah,
married,
well,
right?
yeah,
To have
and
tender relationships with someone of the opposite sex who's like a total stranger and really odd to understand.
and who has full access to a full range of
Who has
emotions.
full
You
access to the
you
complete
make me
range of
so
emotions.
angry. And you know what did I do? I did nothing.
That's
I don't.
right. We
Yeah.
need we need a change. We need a dramatic change in the culture. It was adaptive at one point in time,
Yes,
right?
but
I
but
want my caveman
hmm
to deny access to tender feelings because I want him to pick up his spear, head out into the wilderness, and kill something to eat. Right?
yeah,
I don't want him shy. I don't want him worried. I want him brave. But
yeah, and
it's not adaptive anymore.
right. And now you go into the the children that were given up for adoptions, or me that had my choice about, you know, a responsibility that I had
Relationship.
back then
Right.
taken away.
No, it's tragic. It's really sad.
Mhm.
How does becoming a father change your identity, change a man's identity?
Well, I'm going to instill a little humor here because
Okay.
last night I was in a very large men's group, right? And there were probably 40 people there, and they were like, you know, who's the father? Who's the father? And all I have to say is, well, I've been a father now for 5 years. My son is 41, and and everything stops, and they're like, what? No,
What?
that makes no sense at all. I'm like, oh yeah. I'm like, yeah, I've been a father for 5 years, and they're like, what? And I said, well, I said, way back in 1986, I had a one-night affair. The woman got pregnant. She never told me. And through DNA, we found out. And all of a sudden, it's like, how does that feel? Like, I never thought I would be able to say I was a father. That's something that just, and again, I attribute it to unprocessed trauma. I probably would have been a fine father, but because of the sexual abuse, somewhere along the line, I have an underlying story that people who were abused sexually as a child abuse as an adult. And because I would never want to do that, I have never, by my choice, had a child. Because I don't want to, it's perfect for me. Everything I went through was perfect, right? It's even ironically perfect that I have a son that I don't know. It may be perfect for me, but I would never want this level of emotional pain given to a young person, especially in today's world.
That's right. Powerful.
I don't know if that answers your question, but I'm also one to find humor in the situation, right? Because it's, it's like humor allows us to discuss very serious topics in a way that people can hear them. And when people can hear, that's when we transform, and that's when we can be understood.
So true. Really wisdom.
What would you want adoptees to know about their fathers?
If you're
my son, when I met him, I couldn't remember his dad's name. It was a couple of years after that I actually found a piece of paper with the name on it. And he got the opportunity to meet 6 brothers and sisters. His dad had passed away the year before I met him. And, he found out by meeting the brothers and sisters that he was exactly like his dad. He had the same mannerisms. He talked the same. He drank the same scotch as his dad did. Just little things that came about.
I would say the answer to that question is everything, right? You want to know everything about your father. I have a very close friend who 2 years ago, through, the DNA testing that's so readily available, a young man contacted her and said, I'm your grandson, right? I'm your grandson. And wanted to know everything, of course, everything about her sons, his history, all the dynamics of the family, because genetically, that's where he belongs. He belongs there.
Yeah.
And we want to be connected. So you want to know everything.
So, Jim,
I would answer that. Oh, I was going to say, I would answer that question that if you're listening and you're adopted, I want you to consider, even though you've never met your father, at some level, he loves you deeply. And there's something about the human condition that has us think, oh, if he would have loved us, he would have stuck around. But I'm the perfect example of I didn't know.
Didn't know.
I had no idea. So if you are hearing this, understand that your father loves you. And sometimes maybe there's circumstances where he may not be able to explain it in a way you understand. But at the end of the day, he loves you because you were created out of an act of love, mostly.
Powerful, very powerful.
The person who was the parent to your son, the father to your son, did he marry?
he married a short time before he passed so that she could get his benefits. But they lived together most of his life. And the mother would never, ever really say yes or no. But my son knew he was not the biological father, but they only married, I want to say 2 years before he died, before he passed.
He did not adopt your son.
He may have, I never, that's a question that never, I'm just like,
not likely in a situation like that,
yeah,
just in terms of the legal process.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I would suspect that's a good, Gloria, that's a good thing. He probably didn't want any financial responsibility.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Because that's not mine.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
my understanding is that this woman knew him at the same time. So I don't know if they were off and on, and then when she got pregnant, he jumped in and assumed the role. But I suspect in his mind, since he knew it wasn't his, there was probably some anger towards her inside of him because he's not the father.
Life can be complicated.
Life is complicated and it's crazy.
But that's what makes everything worthwhile, right? Like if everything
That's
went
right.
smoothly, goodness gracious, everybody would be bored.
We would be so bored. And now we have these little dramas that pop up. And granted, this is not a little
That's
drama,
right.
but these dramas pop up. And as a result of them popping up, we are heavily impacted. And, you know, it impacted the perspective of who I was as a man,
Right.
the perspective of who I was as an adult,
Mm-hmm.
and in some ways, right, the perspective of some of my irresponsible behavior as a young man.
Sure.
And that sounds judgmental. That is judgmental. It is judgmental, but I have a level of forgiveness for myself because I didn't know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So tell me, Jim, when back in 1970, when I was the one who had my child, the condoms weren't around. Were they around in 1986 when you impregnated your lady?
Oh, they absolutely were. They absolutely were.
This one, I
And
don't know when they came out, but
and with them is all of the BS lines of, well, you know, it's not as enjoyable. Like, and back then they were a lot thicker. Back then they were far different than they were today. But yeah, they were around.
okay.
And I mean,
thought I'd throw that in, you know.
but let's also back then.
Often a sexual interaction is based on passion, not logic.
Yes, right. And back then too, I suspect there was alcohol involved, which tends to fuel, which tends to put goggles on common sense and
Right.
make it an uncommon issue.
Right.
And also, you know, there wasn't the proliferation of, and I could be wrong on this. Somebody may come back and say, I don't think there was as many sexual diseases back then as there were these days. And I could be wrong. I could be very wrong.
I don't have those stats.
Yeah.
So, what does healing look like for men? Both of you can answer that because healing from trauma and the emotions. And
Gloria, you start. I'll answer after
Yeah,
you.
it first looks like curiosity, right? We cannot move forward in any direction unless we are curious. So you have to first want to know, right? Whether it's want to know your own history, want to know the history for generations behind you, you need to be curious. And then curiosity drives the path forward. And it's a wonderful journey to learn more about yourself, about your history, about the personality characteristics that you carry forward. But it has to start with curiosity.
I think for me, and this is just because of what I do, healing right now, if it is, I'm going to use the word a typical man, they have to be able to find a safe space for them to express their experiences where they're not judged, they're not assessed, and it's never going to be brought up against them. Again, that's one of the reasons why I have this thing called the Freedom Forge, because it is time for men to begin healing at a deeper level. And I think society is open to that, because I'm going to add on to the curiosity. There's curiosity and then there's acceptance. And then when you hear another man who's gone through a level of trauma, it tends to reinforce that you weren't the only one. When men share in the groups that I conduct, it is such a beautiful thing, because they can begin to love themselves again, right? I say it's like acceptance and love. You have to like yourself, then you have to accept yourself. And once you've liked and accepted yourself, you can move into self-love. Culturally, self-love has been beat out of us.
That's
You're
right.
supposed to man up, right? You need to go to work, you need to earn, you need to make sure your family's provided for, and they are the priority, not you. And
Right.
one of the things I say is give yourself 1 hour to experience a brotherhood. Your life will be shifted.
That's brilliant. And it was honestly taken away from you when you were a toddler.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
How do you get men to start talking about the emotions that they've buried for years?
About listening to this podcast.
That's a good start.
That's
Yeah.
I'm going to say you have to create a container where they feel so safe they can say what's there, and it's completely accepted around the room with no judgment, and they're not going to be beat over the head with it later.
Right.
And how do men forgive themselves?
Slowly but surely.
And
It's a journey. It's a journey.
And along that journey, when they're ready, they choose to forgive themselves. And then they experience the state of mind when they choose it, that maybe for the first time in their life, they have a level of freedom. And that freedom, it feels, it tastes, it is experienced as so much beauty that they want more of it. It's an incremental thing.
Jim, how do you feel about your son not wanting to continue with that relationship?
I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it. If I'm not, I would not want to have anything forced on me. He has free will. He has my phone number. If it ever changes, I will be here. The thing is if he comes back, I have more boundaries. Like if he comes back, we have to establish some boundaries, because I need to respect myself as well. And I am not, I haven't been, I've been in his life for maybe a year, And if he doesn't want me in it, I accept that. If he wants me in it, I'm neither a doormat nor a bank account, but I can be a father-like figure, and I can, like, that's how I see it.
Mm-hmm.
And a grandfather.
And a grandfather.
Well, you're the access to the rest of his ancestry,
Mm-hmm.
right? To his history, and our ancestry does influence
Yeah,
us.
yeah, it really does.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to thank you, Gloria, for being here today with Jim. I think
You're
this was
welcome.
really, really good. I learned a lot. And I think we approached the story of the father and what they go through, and gave those fathers lots of things to learn about themselves and places to go, so they can contact both of you at any point in
Thank you
time.
for the opportunity, Janet. I
I
really
really enjoyed
appreciate
having
it.
you, Gloria. I know you have to go, so thank you very much. And
Welcome.
before we over and out, I'd like to ask a favor. Today marks the beginning of Roots and Branches, the branches, and I generally love to hear what you think. Should we continue exploring this side of adoption by bringing together personal stories and professionals who can help us better understand them? Your feedback will help determine the future direction of the branches. You can email me at rootsandbranchescontact@gmail.com. Call or text me at 615-870-6433, or leave a comment on the YouTube release of this episode on our channel at Roots and Branches AS. I read every comment and truly value your thoughts. If today's conversation resonated with you and you'd like to connect with Jim Pehkonen, you can find him at AmazingLifeDesign.com. His book, especially for those navigating new family relationships through DNA testing, is called DNA Results: Navigating Peaceful Family Dynamics. And if Gloria Vanderhorst's insight spoke to you and you'd like to learn more about her work, you can visit her at drvanderhorst.com. Thank you once again for joining me, for supporting Roots and Branches over this past year, and for helping this community grow. I'm Janet Monroe, and this has been Roots and Branches, the branches on KFred Radio. Until next time, remember that every adoption story has roots, and every life it touched creates branches. What branch should we explore next?